ladies and gentlemen, I am MC Sim and welcome back to Space Engineers Steam Workshop Roundup number 19. As always, I'm bringing you 3 of the hottest ships and 3 of the hottest mods from the Space Engineers Steam Workshop page for the last week. Yeah, it's been way too long since I've done one of these, and I do apologize for that. It's just, I explained it in Space Engineers Behind the Scenes number 1. It's just, well, a whole bunch of reasons, but there's some awesome stuff in this video, and I'm glad to finally be able to get back to Space Engineers. Yeah, so first up we have DTI Small Backless Seat by Cailess. Now, the DTI Small Backless Seat, well, it was designed with cramped armored fighting vehicles in mind, where small silhouettes are a must. So comfort is pretty much the last priority here, so that's why it's completely backless. And well, I think it looks pretty hard too. First of all though, the texture work is brilliant. It looks incredible. But like, aside from that texture, well, with that texture, it's kind of a weird mix between sort of the vanilla, very basic, angular aesthetic of Space Engineers and just a touch of flavor with the seat texture. So that's kind of cool. It's not really something that we see a lot. It's, you know, usually you have, you know, one or the other, not both. It's extremely uncomfortable as I facepalm myself there. Moving swiftly on, however, we have Stable Flamethrower by Nukeguard, and there are 2 versions of this mod. One in the stable branch and the other in the development branch for Space Engineers. The development branch, obviously, in case you don't know, in case you've been out of the game for a while, is the one that now receives all the weekly updates. Stable gets updated monthly, but Dev is supposedly a little bit more, you know, a little bit more, shall we say, unstable. More unstable than just regular Space Engineers, yeah. But anyway, so, yeah, this thing not only has the ability to kill opponents, but also has the ability to destroy armor, which I found particularly fun. It doesn't destroy it at, like, a fantastically huge rate, but it destroys it, well, okay, it's not like a grinder or anything like that, but it can destroy armor, and it can be very fun to play around with. Yeah, it's taking forever to get through that block, for instance. Scaffolding, however, being that scaffolding is extremely weak, it took a little bit less time to get through that. Actually, a lot less time. And, well, there you go. I managed to, well, it took a few minutes, but I finally managed to saw off completely that landing platform there. I sent it for a little bit of a tumble, just, well, to see exactly how much damage I could inflict in as little time as possible with the flamethrower. So yeah, it was fun to play with. Now we're moving on to SLV-253, which is a planet by Sektan. Finally, somebody other than Dr. Octagonopus manages to get a planet up on the first page of the Space Engineers Steam Workshop, and it's gorgeous. Well, which is exactly what you might expect from Sektan, because Sektan, everything he touches turns to gold. The guy is the Midas of Space Engineers, I swear. You know, I've played with a lot of his stuff before, and I have to say, this planet just lives up to sort of the level that he's set for himself. By the way, I have more footage of this in Space Engineers Behind the Scenes number 1. In fact, you get to see pretty much all of me exploring the planet on ground level, as well as just flying over it, both jetpacking and in my Typhoon Osiris GT. So definitely, man, definitely make sure to go check that out. But the thing about this plant that strikes me the most is the fact that it has sort of 3 biomes, which is, again, something that we don't get a lot in Space Engineers. We get usually plants that have like 1 biome, or maybe 2 at the most. The fact that this has 3 biomes means that the environments are very, well, they're extremely varied, and, you know, each sort of environment has its own sort of feel when you're exploring it, and its own sort of distinct vibe. So you got some, well, flat-ish grasslands compared to the rest of the mountainous terrain here, and you've got obviously the icelands, a little bit of desert as well, which is super cool. It's a very fun plant to explore, and sort of each area poses its own distinct challenges when you're exploring it. It's a very awesome idea, I think, and we're just sort of flying over it now, obviously. So we're going to actually check out a couple of different biomes here. I just want to show you. Well, first of all, I do want to point out that I think, for me, land generation on this plant may have been bugged, because usually it's not this sort of peaky and stuff like that. It could be the plant, but I do genuinely think that my generation was bugged for me. But you know, this is the best I could do. But if this is the way it's supposed to be, then that is awesome. Like, that's amazing, because just all sorts of mountains and valleys and peaks and hills and stuff like that, and amazing views. Speaking of which, one of those views is about to come up, and you're going to see what I'm talking about. And even on the night side, as you're going to see in Space Engineers Behind the Scenes #1, there's a huge ravine that just looks so cool. This is the view that I'm talking about, by the way. That's just beautiful. Just gorgeous. And views like this are, you know, they're just all the way around the planet. Like, literally every area you visit has just a couple of stunning views. So this is me exploring in the Typhoon Osiris GT coming up. Super fun plant to fly over in a ship as well, just because there's a whole lot of stuff that you have to sort of dodge out of the way of, which is something that I haven't really encountered all that much in Space Engineers. And this is the sort of desert area. By the way, I do want to mention that there may actually be other biomes, but I certainly haven't seen them. So yeah, and then I love how the desert sort of slowly gives way to this Arctic tundra up here, up near the North Pole. So that's kind of cool. So I spent forever flying around LV-253 in the Osiris. In fact, if memory serves me correctly, I think I spent about 20, maybe 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes just going around the planet in the Osiris and just enjoying all these stunning views. And of course, obviously, one thing that I failed to mention, rather embarrassingly, is that, well, this plant, obviously, you know, it's a garden plant, so it's going to have all the natural resources that you need to live in some comfort, which is always nice. So I decided to place a jackal. This is actually the heavy jackal buggy. And so I decided to place it and go exploring. Now we're actually in the grasslands here, which, as you can see, they're not exactly flat, but they're a lot flatter than the other biomes. And I just launched it, and yeah, I just launched it, and that would have been super cool if I'd landed it. In fact, I pretty much thought I was, because I was landing on sort of a downward slope, which when you're off-roading and you get airborne, that's what you want to do. You want to land on a sort of downward slope. That one buzzer was extremely annoying, but other than that, the Jackal fared fairly well here. Of course, this is extremely challenging terrain, which I like. You know, me like extremely difficult terrain. Yeah, and the Jackal just goes straight down a cliff. I swear, Jackal buggies are like the best, bar none, for off-roading. Just they go straight down stuff, and given enough speed, they can go straight back up it too. Oh, but yeah, of course, LV-253, extremely fun to explore, extremely fun to just check out and just find all sorts of amazing sights. Such a good plant, and I had lots and lots and lots of fun exploring LV-253. Once again, if you want to see more of me exploring the planet, you can go and check out Space Engineers Behind the Scenes #1, which I'll leave a link to in the description. It's kind of a cool video, you know, you get to see a little bit of how I go about exploring planets and things like that, so definitely go and make sure to check that out. Now, before we go, I do have a little bit of a funny clip from FCBTS #1. As you will see, I very precisely managed to snipe a tree with a tire. I just couldn't leave this out. So I lose the wheel there, and it goes bouncing off into the sunset, and then it takes out that tree, and then it comes back towards me and tries to take me out as well, but I avoid it. Now we are moving on to the Origin 325A by TheShadowNight. My experiences with this ship were they were mixed, to say the least. As you saw with this one, there was a giant hole in the side, and you know, I just want to point out that this is the first time that I'd loaded this particular world. So right off the bat, I had a ship with a hole in it, which is never ever a good sign. It is a very sharp looking ship. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It reminds me of one of the Imperial fighters from Elite Dangerous. It's just, you know, the whole overall shape, the way the back end, it's got sort of that spoiler that curves up over the top, and of course the cockpit looks gorgeous. I mean, I could spend a while in that cockpit. It just looks strangely comfortable, very comfortable for something that uses sort of the default control panel thing. And under it, well, the underside is kind of flat and boring, but that's understandable. You know, you gotta protect all your critical systems and all that. But I do want to point out that this version has wheel-based landing gears. Why you'd ever use wheel-based landing gears, I have no idea. But so, coming into the interior through the massive crater in the side, we have sort of a small, I don't know what you would call this, in a hangar bay area with a micro cargo thing there. This is a world, by the way, so you don't have to download any mods. And then working our way up to the cockpit, we've got these conveyor systems, and then all these awesome looking displays. They just look incredible. So, I don't know what it is about them. Maybe it's the blue glow, because I am a sucker for the color blue. I'll tell you that much right now. I'm a sucker for the color blue, but just something about them looks so awesomely just cool. Again, I don't know what it is. It's just so awesome. Such a cool cockpit. on this thing with all these nice sci-fi displays. There's something to die for, I tell you what. So, well, I sort of try to hop into the ship and give it a test flight. Well, I notice that there's a giant crater, a giant hole in the side of the ship. And then I go over to this one, and, well, something odd happens to it as well. So, just surveying it for damage right now, and then I hop in through this port here on the top and close it. And then go back just to make sure that everything's righty-tighty with the doors on the side. And then, well, this happens. The front end just out of nowhere explodes. I don't know. I have no idea. And then I go back to try and open these doors, and they make the sound like they're opening, but they don't. They're stuck closed, so I have to use the escape hatch out the top of the ship, just to get out. So, just the strangest thing. I don't know what's going on by this point. I'm looking around trying to figure out what the heck happened, trying to survey the ship for any more damage. And, yeah. There's just a hole in the front end. So I go down here thinking maybe, okay, I hit something, but there's nothing tall enough. There's nothing that was even above, like, the front end of the ship to cause it to explode. So I genuinely have no idea. If you go back, there's a conveyor hinge thing that had broken off, so I'm thinking maybe it had something to do with the conveyor hinge. Even then, there's a little bit of knocking around, which is suspicious. But, I mean, even once you actually get in and try to test the firepower, the guns of this thing are, well, they're not accurate at all. One thing that I didn't show you is this thing actually flies extremely well. It flies superbly. Very good handling, insane thrust in all directions. But the firepower is somewhat lacking with these cannons. There's not really that much splash damage or anything. And they're kind of inaccurate in the way that, you know, you kind of have to sort of, well, they're not lined up with the crosshair too well. So, kind of hard to aim. It's a decent ship, but I wouldn't rate it 10 out of 10, to be honest with you. I mean, more like a 5 or 6 if I gave out ratings on the show, which I don't. But, so now, we move on to the Athena by Parrot. And this is a little bit better ship. Yeah. In fact, I would go as far as to call this really, really a good ship. Just on the outside, though, I will admit that's not too aesthetically pleasing. It's by far not the best looking ship that we've had here on the Space Engineers Steam Workshop Roundup, but you know, it's utilitarian. It gets the job done, and gets it done well, I might add. It's got a couple of mods which I have to load up first, but not too many. So there is that to keep in mind. You know, the armor thrusters that you see over there. Just a little run over the top here. Now, one thing that I do want to say about the ship before we actually get into it is that for a ship that's this small, I mean, it's a large grid, but it's not the biggest thing ever. It actually packs quite a lot into such a small package. So that's definitely its major strength. I mean, just offhand, we've got crew quarters, we've got a hangar, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. So just looking under the ship, that's a hangar door right there. Quite an unusual location for it. In the front, it's a little bit weird, and I think that really doesn't contribute too much to the overall aesthetic of the ship. But like I said, you know, The big thing to me about a ship is, well, it's not really aesthetics. It's does it get the job done? And well, this does get the job done fairly well. It's an exploration vessel with a forward ramp and a hangar and hangar gates for air tightness. So Parrot says that he's worked quite a long time on this ship, and well, you can kind of tell that. The inside is far more aesthetically pleasing, I'll say that. Nice huge hangar, great lighting, you know, not too bright, not too dim, just right. It feels kind of warm and inviting, which, how do you do that with gray armor? I mean, if you look at all this, the armor is actually gray and the lighting is just casting it in sort of a slightly different light that just makes it a lot more inviting and welcoming and warming. So, moving on through the hangar airlock, we have a nice view out to the hangar and to the Osiris GT with the hangar oversight area there, and this sort of, we got this sort of crossroads-ish area, sort of empty area where I guess you could, maybe if you want to, you could put down a little bit of seating or something like that to make it a little bit more comfortable, or maybe a table to discuss new exploration findings or stuff like that. And then this is the reactor bay. This is engineering here, and I believe it's powered by just the one large reactor. If memory serves me correctly, that could not be the case. But so we come out of the reactor, and just across the way we have these stairs. Now this staircase, I usually cut out staircases because, well, they're sort of pointless and boring, but that staircase looks hella cool with all the containers and piping and stuff going around it. There's just something about that that makes it look incredibly cool. Now we hook a left at the top of that particular staircase when we come to the cryo chambers, one on each side. And yeah, basic cryo chambers, a little bit of a view, a little bit of a window out the top there. And then up on top we have this platform where the captain would potentially go and oversee flight and hand instructions down to the navigators and stuff like that. I would like to maybe see sort of a holographic table up there, one of those holographic tables that displays, that has a sort of like stacked planet display. It just, you know, those are purely for decoration, but I think that would actually look kind of, well, kind of cool up there, especially given the fact that this is an exploration ship. So, out the back of the bridge, we just have this airlock with that door there. Nothing too spectacular, but moving back down the staircase, well, we have quite a lot. You remember when I said that this ship packs a lot into a small area? Well, this is perhaps where we see it at its best. We have sort of crew quarters here. We got a nice little bed over there and cryopods for two. Quite comfortable given that it's all vanilla. All vanilla stuff in here. You even have a chair and some buttons for the lights. So that's always awesome. And then over here, this is, I believe, the captain's quarters. You can see, well, it's a little bit smaller, but it's a little bit more well laid out. You've only got the one cryopod this time and the one chair, but you also have a window. Moving on, we're headed to the bridge, and you have these two consoles off to the side, perhaps for system management or navigation or things like that. And then we have the two azimuth, well, I forget what you call those, fighter seats, cockpits. And we have this conveyor system here, I assume for the, for the oxygen. And yeah, just a nice little basic bridge here with some nice lighting. and some system stats up there on the LCD display. One thing that I want you to notice, though, is that these windows are the wrong side out, so it's really hard to actually see through them once you're sort of in first person. You have to actually go to third person to be able to see, which is not a problem for me because it's something that I do regularly anyway. One thing though about this ship is that it's kind of difficult to actually get started, in that, as you see, all the thrusters, well, they start off, so you have to turn all the thruster groups on, and then you have to, if you want all your thrusters to come online, you have to actually go into the K menu, and you have to find the thruster groups in the K menu, and then you have to turn show in terminal on for all the thruster groups, and then you have to turn them all on, because not every thruster is bound to a thruster group. It's super confusing, but if you want maximum firepower, that's what you have to do. It's crazy. So just getting it all started is a little bit difficult. I don't really know why the creator chose to make it like that, but yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a strange design decision. Now, this, as of when I filmed this is actually the current version of the world. However, it has now been updated, so maybe that's something that's fixed, but it's a little bit weird. And once you get it all started, you'll find that, well, the ship actually flies pretty well for, well, such a heavy ship. I mean, the gyroscopes obviously aren't quite the best, but the thrust, you got plenty of that. It's atmo capable, it's space capable, and yeah, it flies pretty well. It is an exploration ship, which, so that's something that you would kind of expect, being that this, is designed to go around in system and find sort of different areas, and it also has a jump drive, so that helps. Yeah, overall, I'd say it's a pretty decent sort of ship as far as flight is concerned. Nothing special, obviously, which is why I chose not to spend too long focusing on, how it flies. So I decided to see how the ship performs in, in no power scenario. Plant side, so your reactor goes out and you crash land. And I found that for whatever reason, at least in my game, this ship seems to be absolutely impervious. I don't know why. I think it's a glitch, but this is actually footage from my second run, from my second crash landing attempt. It just doesn't get damaged. I have no idea why that is. So it's just sort of rocking and almost goes up into statue mode there, but then it comes back down on all fours. And like I said, no damage. I have no clue. I have no clue why that is. I mean, just look at it. Absolutely nothing. Everything works. I can still thrust up. I can still fly it. The most confusing thing in the world. So I decided to get the Typhoon Osiris GT out of the hangar and slam it into the ground just to see what happened, and it gets destroyed. So I don't know what happened with that. Maybe a bug? I don't know. But anyway, so we are now moving on to the final ship, the STRD Labs XT1 Cetus by Konigscobra and Dr. Dark Sith Skeeter. And Well, this is some ship, dude. This is some ship. I had a blast with this ship. It looks fantastic, which is, you know, something that you might expect from names like Konigscobra and Dr. Dark's Skeeter. The biggest thing that it reminds me of, you know, is the sort of curve that goes the length of the ship, as well as the black and white paint scheme. It reminds me of the Normandy SR2 from Mass Effect 2. You'll be able to see more of the sort of curvature of the ship as we go along it. Of course, it's also got got sort of this ribbed design that runs from the front to the back of the ship also, and the mainsail, mainsail thruster array, that looks intimidating. 2 big hydrogen thrusters just dominating the back of the ship. And yeah, look at this. As we go along the top here, check out the curvature. It's just, it's very rare that we get this sort of smooth curved design in Space Engineers, and this is probably the result of their use of Warbros Mod Lab's long ramps. But usually we get more sort of boxy designs, angular designs in SC, so it's kind of refreshing to see something that, you know, where the dominant element of it is a curve along the top of the ship. So yeah, it looks cool, looks awesome, looks spectacular, fantastic. Any adjective that you can think of to describe it, it looks super cool, and I'm definitely digging the racing stripes that go along the top of the ship. Those look super cool also. And of course, you got a little bit of firepower, as you saw. Not too much, but a little bit, you know, a little bit of dissuasion power there. Something that you might expect, given the fact that the Cetus is, well, another transporter. So looking at the bottom of the ship, as we sort of move past it here, you've got a pitiful amount of reverse thrust, but we'll get to that later. You've also got sort of this railgun looking thing. I'll say it's a railgun, it's actually just a whole bunch of Gatling guns that look like the armor around them looks like a railgun, which is kind of cool. You've got what appears to be a gravity drive on the right, and the missiles on the left, at the top and the bottom, to you and me. And then finally the mainsail array out the back. So yeah, once again, it looks pretty cool from the bottom also. Just a super cool looking ship all around. Those are pretty much my thoughts. So heading in through the hangar, we're actually going to explore the front, this front compartment first, but super small hangar. That's my one gripe about this. It's just a super small hangar. Now, personally, I feel like this would have been a better location for maybe the engineering bay, or, you know, or something like that. And then in the back, you could have the hangar, because where the engineering bay is right now is actually a lot bigger space, I believe. So you got this sort of front area here with these windows and a couple of cargo containers, and, you know, just some conveyor stuff there. Not really too much to talk about, but this is the door out the back of the hangar through the airlock. You come up to this little staircase here. Navigation through this, super simple. This sort of, you know, curve has sort of a spiral shape at the main hallway, but again, it's linear with branches out to the sides. And you have a chair there with a window out to the side. And then coming around this corner, we have the cryo chambers. A pretty nice cryo bay with all this sort of green here. And then, of course, you have these seats that we're about to see over here for you to just get out and stretch your legs and cool off, or warm up rather would be the more appropriate term, after a long period of cryo sleep. So those are pretty cool. Also, just a little bit of a nice view for you to warm up to as you come out of cryo sleep. And then so headed up this couple of ramps here. We come up to what I would probably call the main concourse. Now, off to the left, we have another cryo area. This time, I believe, probably for senior officers. Yeah, it's once again quite a nice cryo area. Again, nice and spacious, and it's got sort of that Atheris shipyard sort of green, which I understand if some people didn't quite like that shade green, but personally, I think it looks kind of cool. It adds sort of a different energy to the whole area. But moving out of the cryo area, we now head towards the AI core, and it's a pretty simplistic AI core, as we're about to see. Just a couple of programmable blocks off to either side. The top two doors are the bridges, and then the bottom door, you can see we have a couple of displays with some critical ship statistics there, but the bottom door leads first to the med bay and then to engineering. So I'm not sure why I think of the location of this med bay, quite honestly. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's kind of cool to have a med bay right next door to engineering, just in case something, say, goes seriously wrong with the reactor. So say, like, a couple of crew members become irradiated because of some strange thing that's happened to, one of the two main reactors. And by the way, for some reason, I find this particular area kind of cool. Sort of a little bridge over the gravity generator there with a blue light. Maybe it's a blue light. I don't know. But so yeah, this has two main reactors. There's one right there, a little bit of a chair off to the side. Again, just for you to sit down in. And then there's the other one. And by the way, everything's all conveyed up, so this is a survival-ready ship, just like the other two that we've reviewed here. And then out the back you have the oxygen generator here. A little bit of a small engineering area. I don't think Tally would like particularly too much, because she's used to a little bit less cramped areas, or cramped feeling, I should say. But so this is the main bridge, and speaking of cramped, this main bridge, yeah, it's no windows, no anything, just a couple of blocks, but it's well within the core of the ship, so it's hard to get to, if it's being fired on, which is definitely cool. So, how does it fly? That's the big question, the big order of the day here. And main acceleration, it's pretty good. As you can see, we're up to 40 meters a second in this 3,655,000 kilogram ship. Gyroscopes, well, fantastic gyroscopes. It can come about extremely quickly. That's the big thing. So, if you're being attacked and they're trying to get to your main sail array, you can just whip it right around and not really have to put up with that bullshit too much, at least. So yeah, the gyroscopes are pretty nice. The side thrust, well, it's serviceable. It's not particularly spectacular. You do have a couple of big ion thrusters. They're large ion thrusters, I should say, to get you turned there. Reverse thrust, though, as I found out, reverse thrust, it has none of that. It has no reverse thrust at all. In fact, it took me a while to get it stopped, just so I could do this demonstration in the order of about 5 minutes to get stopped from 200 meters a second. 5 minutes, which is just unacceptable, quite honestly. That's rather poor. Firepower, on the other hand, well, it's got plenty of that. It's got quite the salvo of rocket launchers, reloadable rocket launchers at that. As you can see, just those few salvos there knocked a giant hole in the duplicate Cetus that I pasted in, and obviously the railgun, air quotes, the railgun does its job reasonably well also, although it is difficult to line up, being that, well, it doesn't really exactly, again, match the cursor. So that's one thing that I had to deal with. It took a considerable while, perhaps a bit of a testament to the XT1 Cetus's build quality, but it did take a while. But eventually, I was able to completely shoot it in half, just to, well, be mean, quite honestly. But then, as I noticed the front end of the ship was headed towards the planet below, I decided that I would actually take this opportunity to test its survivability in, in a crash landing from orbit sort of scenario. And, well, I don't know if you noticed, but we had power. Even though the ship was completely shot in half, somehow the front was still getting power. I don't know how. Maybe that's just a backup reactor that's specifically for this scenario. But yeah. So I sat down in one of the chairs, and, well, lo and behold, I stayed in that chair for this whole journey planet side. I mean, at one point I believe we did over 300 meters a second, so quite the impact. And yet, well, obviously we're not getting, the thrusters are destroyed. There's quite a lot of fire, but overall, I'd say that the front end of this survived relatively well. Definitely well enough to, say, become a sort of temporary base, as we, if we had to try to survive planet side for any length of time. We still had an oxygen tank, for instance, and we have enough fuel for 19 days, so that should be definitely plenty of time to, say, get a base set up. Planet side, maybe make a beacon as well. So yeah, the XT1 Cetus, it's a pretty good ship overall, I would say. Definitely worthy of Konigscobra and Dr. Dark's Skeeter. So yeah, well, that's been another episode of the Space Engineers Steam Workshop Roundup. Once again, I am super sorry for not making one of these in so long, but yeah, just I kind of ran out of passion for the game, but now that my passion is back, I hope to be making more Space Engineers videos, not just SEWRs. So, if you like this video, then go in, bits up that like button. If you really, really liked it and you want to see more, go hit that subscribe button. Hey, I've been MC Zinman. You've been awesome. I'll see you guys in the next video, probably my 150 subscriber special. MCZ out.